Hello, I'm Robin from Team 10N, and this is an explanation video for our States robot. So, starting off with the drivetrain, we have a 6-motor drive, pretty standard. We use a 450 RPM on 2.75-inch wheels. The middle wheels are traction wheels because we don't want to get pushed around, and also because it's better to fix odom drift, which is a problem in Prague, especially if you're gonna get pushed around and stuff. So our coder just likes it that way. And also we really, another reason we use this drive because it's a really good blend of speed and also defense. It has pretty good speed and torque. And also we went with this drivetrain last year at Worlds and we did pretty well with it, so we kind of just went with it. It's also a lot smaller than our old drivetrain, which is 360 on 3.25 wheels, but so it allows us from space to add these extensions of box C-channels, I guess. That kind of just helps be a really good support for sleds. I think we had these sleds for a month or two and they still haven't broken. So this is just a really good support for our sleds. And also in the back, it's also really good, except that it's slightly shorter than the front ones. So the back sleds don't work as well, but they still do work. As you can see, the back sleds on the other side is broken, unfortunately, but it still worked pretty well. And also, most importantly, it kind of also have this funnel built into it, so we can I guess have a better tolerance in the autumn. So even if we can miss the tribal by I guess this much, our intake can still go in just because our funnel system. And also in the back, we also have it just so it's better for getting balls in and stuff. So I'm just gonna drive around the barrier. The barrier cross is not too good because again, we are 18 pounds. It's more than ideal for a fit robot in this game, but trying to fix that for Worlds, I guess. And also, something unique we did for a robot is that we zip tied our bearings, especially for the axle ones, because we want to save weight. And I just think about it, if all of these holes are filled by screws and nuts, that'll be at least a half a pound of weight added to your total list. And since we're already pretty heavy robot, we don't want that to happen. So yeah, zip tie your bearings, it helps with weight, and plus you kind of don't need to screw it in anyways for drivetrain at least. Also, we have, I would say, more than a necessary amount of bracing on our robot, which is probably why we're so heavy. So down here we have, I guess, a short Hyshins axle that goes across the drivetrain. It's really good for scoring balls because this part won't bend basically ever. So, but however, we also have another longer one underneath it, which is this one, which is kind of unnecessary since we already have one above it. And we all know Hyshins axle is pretty heavy, so adds a lot of weight. But amount of bracing on this robot just kind of makes it super, I guess, strong. We also have one over here, which kind of supports our hang mech. As you can see, 2 pistons mounted on here, and also our wings. And on the back, this 3x, it supports our towers, and also acts like a really good ram bar for the triples. I just have one here, and I can push them pretty easily. To prevent this from bending, we actually added a 3rd piece of Hyshins axle, kind of a small strip down here. It doesn't really, I don't think it helps too much, but it actually hasn't bent yet. Usually C-channels in the back like this bends pretty easily, but ours hasn't bent yet, so pretty happy about that. And also, a cool feature of our drivetrain that we kind of didn't implement is that there's a big space down here, which we were gonna reserve for odom pods, but we didn't have time to add it, so just a pretty good space here, just in case we need it, but we didn't, so it was sad. Next up, I'll talk about the wings. We have 2 sets of wings, the front and the back wings. Front wings is it's mounted on top of this, I guess, extension, so it's a lot higher than other teams would have it. Most teams mount this wings directly on top of the drivetrain, but we have on top of this 1x, so it's actually a pretty high pair of wings. But this gave us a pretty good advantage because when they're pretty high up, the balls won't be able to roll like over the wings, so we can wedge them properly. So you just go over the bar pretty easily. But if you have your like plastic or your wing slightly lower, the ball might actually go over instead of like going up this way. So having a pretty high, I guess, a front wedge wings is helpful for us. And the piston is actually really smooth. It kind of just gets tucked right in between the C-channel. We use plastic nuts for weight, obviously, everywhere, plastic nuts, just because we want to save weight. But this is mounted on the pillow bearing with tubing, passive retraction, active extension, so we can get the most out of it. Pretty smooth, doesn't require too much air. And we cut this part off so we can actually have space for our wall riders. But you don't need to cut this much off. We did it because we actually had bigger wall riders before. They were bigger gear size, so we cut a lot of it off. But you don't need to cut this much off. So it actually worked pretty well at Palm. We don't have too much trouble with it. It's also good for scoring. Like if you have a ball over here, you just go in and get that scored. And now this is, we're going to talk about our back wings. For back wings, we mounted them on top of our, I guess, L channel extension, boxy channel extension, whatever. But we mounted it on top because we want a higher, I guess, elevation compared to, because first we want to get into the matchload bar, but sometimes we notice that if it's too low, you won't be able to get in a good angle for them to be D-scored. And also sometimes we notice that if you have your vertical wings too low, the ball can go over the vertical wing, which is pretty bad. So we have them pretty high up so that no matter what, we can always get the tri-balls because they weren't able to roll under it or over it. So we can always make sure that tri-balls get hit into the goal. We use those a lot for skills because you can push huge chunks of tri-balls in without like losing power, unlike the front ones. So we also chose to use hinges because I guess they're more robust compared to screw joints, and also screw joints we kind of, again, like I said, we wanted them to be more elevated, and screw joints won't be able to give us that advantage. So yeah, I mean, we used old pistons instead of new ones, so we can have like the better, I guess, piston mount here compared to our front wings. Our front wings actually have the locks like this threaded into the locks like this, but our back ones are old pistons, so we couldn't do that. We have to screw it in like this, which doesn't really affect us that much, but it's sometimes a nuisance. And also to make it clear that we're touching the matchload bar, we have those long zip ties that just really make it obvious that we're touching the bar, so I wouldn't get called out for illegal matchloading whatsoever. And on the left and the right wing, we have the exact same design, but on the right wing, we actually have like the extension L channel that's just for balancing, so it's pretty consistent. Yeah, it gets it every single time. We don't have too much troubles with it. Obviously, this needs some more tuning, but we usually go for our C-tier hang instead of the balancing. So yeah, and also to help brace it, we have those, I guess, trusses going from here to here. Makes it really sturdy and strong, doesn't bend at all. And apart from just helping us in Auton, these things actually help us in driver as well. Because oftentimes when, let's say, a blue alliance try to match load, you defend them and they drop the ball in the match load zone. And then your goal is like right there, and you have a blue ball just sitting in the corner, and you can easily go and kind of just go for D-score, and just gets it out of the zone. Ours is like pretty big, so it makes it really easy to D-score. So just get it out of the zone, and then, sorry, it's kind of hard with one hand, but you just, boom, ram it in. And that's just a quick 5 points for you, because again, you don't have to go back to your own zone to get your ball, and instead you just D-score the one from the blue zone straight into your own goal, which is pretty good. Next up, I'll talk about our intake. So our intake the rotatable joint is moved. It's kind of mounted at near the center of the robot, as you can see. So it has a pretty long arm, and also it's at a really low angle compared to other robots. So that just makes stealing tri-bolts really easy because you can get under people's intake, but people's intake will have a hard time getting under our intake. So having a pretty long pivot joint is really good for that case. And as for the intake itself, we have one motor, blue cartridge, running this sprocket down here. So it's a 1:1 600 RPM ratio. Overall, this ratio, we really liked it because, again, it's fast and we can actually shoot the bolts far. But the problem with it is just one motor kind of lacks some of that torque needed to outtake the bolt consistently through the trapdoor. But yeah, speaking of the trapdoor mech, we just have a simple piece of polycarb. We drilled some holes in there so it makes room for the zip tie. And zip tie kind of just acts like a pivot joint here. They rotate decently well, but the thing with zip ties is they're kind of flimsy. It's going to rotate it like kind of this way and this way. And that just kind of makes it sometimes annoying because it gets rough occasionally, and it just gets like, it's not as good or smooth as if you would use like pillar brains or like real holes instead. And as for the stopper, we have this high strength axle down there, just kind of acts like a stopper. We just extended some screws out there and fix it before going anywhere backwards. So we know for sure that we stop the bolt before it can actually go up too far. But this can allow it to go downwards, which is what we want for a trapdoor mech. Overall, we really like this intake speed and torque, but it just, again, like I said, sometimes this low torque intake does not appear to be able to handle like tri-bolt through the trapdoor mech well. So it's just like it works like pretty well, I guess. It shoots it pretty far, but you can see that there's a slight gap between like the shots, which is kind of the motor trying to get it out. So wrong direction, sorry. Yeah, so I'm gonna try and get it out, but like it shoots well, but it just has kind of a hiccup before getting fully out. And it's not a big issue because as you can just get it out, give it a little shake, it'll get out pretty easily. And but again, just because we're one motor and 600 RPM, it makes it kind of difficult. To actually hold the tri-bolt, we have this piece of latex tubing kind of just extending out here. Just keeps things easy to hold on the tri-bolt. Some annoying things with this type of like, I guess, holding chamber is that like entanglement is a potential issue. Plastic is sometimes better than this because they just don't get entangled and they're somewhat rigid. But overall, we only broke this one set states, and this has worked well all season. Yeah, so sucks it in pretty easily and also squares it well because we have this high strength axle there, just keeping everything simple and strong, making sure nothing bends. And as for the stoppers, we do have two different types of stoppers. We have these downward stoppers, which are these black bumpers. This keeps your intake from going any lower, as you can see. The rubber kind of just makes it easy to stop and reduce the amount of force going down in the drivetrain. And as for upward stoppers, we have these zip ties going from over here and over here upwards. This keeps it from going any higher than necessary because once again, we have a motor here, and if we go too far up, this motor will hit the ball bearing. And these actually broke sometime during comp, as you can see here, which is why this motor is a little bent. But overall, they would have been like threaded through the intake, the C channel, so that we have a zip tie going downwards. Then we zip tie that part back up with another zip tie, so it's basically locked in place. You can go down, but you can only go up to a certain extent, which is how we stop our intake from going too high up. As for the bracing and the overload joint, we use a high strength pillar bearing. Inside we put the golden brass insert, which keeps it really high strength and just makes sure nothing bends. This is a pretty good joint. Again, it's pretty strong and also just pretty smooth because a brass insert rotates pretty well on top of the pillar bearing. And we also have a 3-bear on the front, just keeping things in place, making sure nothing bends. We mounted our tanks on top to fix our cog because our cog is kind of back oriented, but we just add them to the front of our intake to keep it balanced out. And So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple intake. High strength axle, of course, for the intake itself. But honestly, we're gonna go for 2-motor intake for Worlds because we want that quick bowling and just overall intake torque for matches and stuff. And then next up, I'll talk about our puncher. So our puncher is mounted really high up on our towers, and our towers are really well supported. We have a truss here, a truss back there. Can I see it? We have one here and one on the other side as well. And we have the C-channel bracing here and also back there. So we can make sure that this thing never bends under no circumstance. So our puncher itself is mounted really high up. As you can see, there's basically no tolerance, no clearance between the bar and this thing. And since we didn't use a ratchet, we're gonna keep this thing up the entirety of the match. So we don't want this thing to go too high up because we want to go back this way and as well as this way. So we're gonna want to stop this right under the bar because getting the maximum height for your puncher is really good if you want to shoot it over, because if you start off really high up, the tri-ball will have a less difficulty going over the bar since you're already pretty high up. And you don't need too much tension or too much force on your kata to actually shoot it over. So which is why we mounted it pretty high up. And this kata, we really like the ratio. This bottom slip here is double slip, so it makes it really fast. And we are like only running it at 80% velocity. So that's a kind of an idea of how fast our puncher is. It gets all the tri-balls, like all 44 tri-balls in I think 22 seconds. But again, it's running at 80% velocity, and at 100 it should be done by 18 seconds. So we are gonna run this speed at this ratio at Worlds because we kind of just really like how we can increase the speed and decrease the speed at our well. So it just makes it really easy to adjust the speed, and obviously as long as our match holders get practice, we can just get higher skills since we can make more time for our driver and our prog round. And one annoying thing about kata is just how short the actual arm is, because tangential speed, tangential force is defined also as the radius. So the higher the radius, the more force we have. So with the same amount of rubber bands, but a longer arm, you can get more power out of that punch. So, which is something we'll probably improve at Worlds. It's just gonna make this longer so we can get more force out of it. And our stoppers are these two black bumpers, kind of just hits this high strength axle, which ensures that nothing bends because high strength axle tends to not bend. And also rubber bumpers kind of just absorb the impact better, so that none of that impact gets shocked down the towers and the drivetrain. So we can maintain a consistent shooting since nothing bends, and this kind of just stops it well. For our actual head, we have this high strength axle, and those locks add up for weight because momentum is defined as mass times velocity, and the higher the mass, the more momentum you'll get from this hit. So, and also this just transfers very, very good sound energy. But yeah, so some people do come up and ask me, why did you not use plastic for here like other teams? It's because we found out we want more freedom adjusting kind of our the angle of our tips and our shooting. But plastic is kind of difficult because plastic is, again, a plastic, and you can't really have too much stuff sticking out on there and adjust it. But we just found out using pure screws is really helpful to actually adjust the angle, since oftentimes those two can be placed at different angles. I think this one's slightly less sharp than this one, and this one has a spacer too. But these two are different just because we want our spread to be more oriented towards the left or to the right. It really depends, but we can change it at our well, which is why we kind of went with this instead of a plastic, so we can just get more freedom with where we're shooting. But we can place it on there pretty well. We can just kind of just rest on top of there like most other teams. Yeah, that's it for our puncher. Next up, we're gonna talk about hang. So we use a 4-piston hang. They're all long pistons because long pistons, you can have more freedom on where you pivot your joints, so you can get most of your piston force. And technically, only one piston is pushing it up, which is this one, which is why you can see that it's slightly bent, it's higher to the right, because this piston is the only one pushing it up. But because we don't need all 4 pushing it up, we only need one. But there are like some bands helping to go down, but we don't really need them. We just wanted to make sure that we get that see-through climb no matter what. So how this works is that we have like the pivot joints mounted on top of this, which is like, wait, I'm showing you better here. This, again, it's similar to how our intake works. It is a high strength pillar brain with the brass sensors inside. Just makes it high strength and making sure that this doesn't bend at all whatsoever. But the actual like, I guess hanging part is made off of free spinning ball bearings. They're taken out of the sockets. What this does is just kind of like, some teams, when they use plastic inside of these things for climb, if you ram it in a different direction or ram it too hard, sometimes the ball like tilts a little bit, and it's kind of just bad because you want to get that see-through climb no matter what, which is why we have these, because when they free spin, they always get our roller back to our caught on our see-through climb every single time. And obviously we box these to just making sure these things don't bend. And we do also tune the spacing to actually get the most out of our to get the most out of the ball bearings, because these things are kind of flimsy, and like adjusting it even by one spacer can affect your climb. So we just have these up there, and just in case you want to make a switch to our to how far this thing goes down. But how this works is that, as you can see, it's kind of just right at the middle of the bar, but this can still pivot up, so when we ram it, we just go slowly, it just gets right over the bar, and then boom, it clicks in, and it's already off the ground, so it's an 8-tier climb. But even if we do, like, for example, like whenever pistons doesn't work, we can still get that 8-tier climb as long as this one goes up properly. So it just makes it really simple. And to actually get the see-through climb, we just stay in this position and retract our pistons. So as you can see, it just kind of spins really smoothly. Even if you go backwards or forward, the free spinning kind of like ball bearings just keeps the robot at like a parallel to the ground C-tier position. Just makes it really simple for us to get the C-tier and consistent. I don't think we've ever had a hang failure at stakes before. And another reason why I really like piston hang instead of motor hang is because, again, they hang really consistently, and you can hang like in 2 seconds or 1 second.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And as long as you set up your robot right, as long as you tune your piston geometry right, you can always get that C-tier climb no matter how. So it's just a lot more consistent than motor hang, which is why we like it. Getting this thing down is kind of a pain though. Trying to make sure we don't bend anything, because we don't want the pistons to retract suddenly, so yeah. Oh yeah, I do want to talk about our electronics too. Our radials on here kind of on rubber joints because we want to reduce the static, so we don't ever DC in a real match. We also use a couple sensors to help our product. We have an inertial down here just to keep things simple. Obviously, inertial is one of the best sensors in VEX, as we all know. And distance sensors are helpful too. We have one here, and one here. So we can basically know wherever we are on the field, just keeping things easy. Our brain mount is on the back because it's just easier to select off on and easily accessible. But to protect our brain from actually getting destroyed, we do have like a brain cover to keep it like safe. And also we added this kind of bar on top to keep the wires from getting jammed, because the gold bar kind of just rests exactly at where the wires are. So we want to protect that from getting hit when we jam it into the gold. So we kind of just added this bar to keep it from getting destroyed. So yeah, that's it for electronics.
Sure, it's a common notion, perpetual